She always looks at you, not for who you are, but for who she imagines you could be. You feel that flicker of hope in her eyes, or is it a hidden desire? You believe you're seen, but you're actually being measured, assessed, like a blank canvas awaiting her vision. Yet that masterpiece is never truly you. Carl Jung, with the precise insight of a man who plumbed the depths of the human psyche, recognized this. He dedicated his life to mapping the unconscious mind, and he made a startling observation about women. They don't fall in love with men themselves, but with an idea, a fantasy, a projection. Often, they don't even realize they're doing it. You might think she's choosing you, but she's choosing the version of you she's crafted in her mind, a psychological construct playing a role in her own narrative. When you no longer fit the script, she replaces the actor, not the story. Jung termed this the animus, the inner masculine image residing within every woman. When this animus is undeveloped, it can become a controlling force. It's the unseen influence that leads women to pursue dangerous men and dismiss good ones, prompting irrational arguments, unwise dominance, and baseless moralizing. Jung described this as a spiritual possession, where a woman acts not from her own awareness, but from the shadow of her inner masculine fantasy. And men often fall for it because they haven't learned to recognize it. You confuse being wanted with being understood, being chosen with being known. You believe her when she says you're unique, when you're simply the latest person cast in a role she's been perfecting since childhood. When the illusion shatters, you're left feeling confused and betrayed, wondering what went wrong. But you did nothing wrong. You just stopped being a convincing character in someone else's play. Jung suggested the only escape from this psychological drama is through individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole within yourself. Most men, however, never embark on this path. They've been conditioned to seek external validation, to let women define their worth. This keeps them trapped in the same recurring role, replaced when the audience grows tired. Individuation is a difficult, demanding process. It requires confronting your buried vulnerabilities, the weak, the insecure, the broken parts of yourself. It demands that you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start truly seeing yourself. Jung understood something many men miss. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Your worth isn't earned through her affection, but by standing independently, fully aware, responsible, and alive. A man who has faced his own unconscious cannot be manipulated by projection. He is the author of his own reality. Jung noted that the great tragedy for modern men isn't rejection, but their willingness to reshape themselves to gain acceptance. You might call it compromise, partnership, or love, but Jung called it self-betrayal. He warned that men who neglect their own psychological growth become enslaved to feminine projection, molding themselves into shapes demanded by women who don't even understand their own true desires. You cease to be men and instead become masks, smiling, agreeing, performing, until you forget who you were before you put on a mask. And women, they sense this. They sense it more than you can imagine. The very qualities you believe will make her love you, obedience, predictability, availability, often become the reason she loses attraction. Instinct, Jung taught, isn't drawn to comfort, but to enigma, to the man she can't fully grasp or control. The moment you lay yourself bare, without boundaries or backbone, you don't become more cherished. You become invisible, discardable. Yet this paradox keeps most men tethered. The fear of being alone outweighs the fear of being inauthentic. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her, choosing a fabricated role over the terrifying prospect of standing without applause. Jung believed that true freedom eludes a man until he embraces solitude. He wrote that individuation, the path to self-wholeness, demands a symbolic death, shedding false selves so something genuine can surface. But this journey is profoundly solitary. As you progress, you gain an unsettling clarity, recognizing the games people play, their facades, and the self-deceptions they cling to for security. When you try to articulate what you see, you're met with disdain, labeled cold, arrogant, or the problem itself. But you are not the problem. You are the mirror, and people often despise what the mirror reveals. Jung understood this, having spent decades observing patients terrified to confront their own shadow, the dark, unacknowledged aspects of their psyche. He warned that women are often raised in cultures that discourage this confrontation, telling them they are inherently pure and complete. Yet Jung disagreed. He saw the unconscious animus, an internal voice of false certainty and moral superiority, as a significant danger to women. If a woman fails to integrate this inner masculine force, she becomes its captive, projecting it onto every man she encounters, blaming them for the inner conflict she refuses to address. And here you are, believing you're her rescuer, the exception. You think if you just love her enough, prove yourself sufficiently, or perform well enough, she'll finally choose the real you. But projection doesn't work that way. It's a thief, Jung taught, replacing reality with illusion. Until both men and women awaken from this delusion, they're destined to replay the same tragic patterns, blaming each other, dancing with shadows. The cruelest irony is that the woman who once saw you as her hero will eventually see you as her adversary. Not because you changed, but because you failed to fulfill the fantasies she projected onto you, often without even realizing it. Jung called this psychological betrayal inevitable when neither person takes responsibility for their inner world. You didn't lie or betray her. You merely disappointed the invisible character she invented in her unconscious mind, a character you were never meant to be. That's why she resents you, not for your flaws, but for failing to embody a myth she never told you about. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." This is especially true in romantic relationships. Both men and women enter them not as whole individuals, but as walking projections, dragging their unlived fears, unmet needs, and unresolved childhood wounds into the arms of someone they barely comprehend. You call it love, Jung called it possession. And like a man under a spell, you keep walking into the same trap, believing this time will be different. But it never is, because you haven't yet asked the most terrifying question a man can ask himself. What if I am the one responsible for this pattern? You want to blame women, to call them manipulative, deceptive, or shallow. But Jung would ask, and why did you allow yourself to be chosen by that woman in the first place? The man who refuses to confront his own inner feminine world is destined to be enslaved by hers. You are not a victim, you are a volunteer. You chose to play the fool, to be the actor in her private myth, because facing your own emptiness, your own lack of wholeness, was far more terrifying than playing a part in someone else's fantasy. This is where most will stop listening, for this is where comfort ends and responsibility begins. Jung offered no easy solutions. Jung offered no simple fixes. He didn't provide quick steps to power, but rather the arduous, lifelong task of self-confrontation. This means facing the silence of your own mind until illusions crumble, until the inner voice that claims you're nothing without her fades. That voice will resist, insisting on her necessity, on your incompleteness without her, on the need for feminine affirmation. However, Jung's work reveals a more profound truth. The man who can stand alone, without approval, applause, or being needed, is the man who is truly liberated, free from projection, from performance, from the burden of living as someone else's ideal. When you reach this state, you don't become cold. You become authentic, rooted, and fully alive in your own being. Paradoxically, this is when women will be most attracted to you, not because you need them, but because you don't. You'll smile, not out of indifference, but from a newfound understanding. You'll grasp that she, too, is on her own journey, that she must confront her own inner masculine and awaken from her own illusions. You cannot do this work for her. You cannot save her from herself. You can only follow Jung's example. Walk your own path so fearlessly that you become a living mirror, reflecting truth back to all who dare to look. Most will avert their gaze, but a rare few will express gratitude. This is the distinction between being loved for a role you play and being respected for the man you've become. When you finally realize you no longer need to perform, you'll observe something peculiar. People will become uncomfortable around you. They'll sense your presence, even if they can't articulate it. The weight of your authenticity will unsettle them, as you no longer fit their predictable categories for safety. Jung warned that the individuated man is not welcomed by society. He's often feared, misunderstood, labeled distant or arrogant. Yet the deeper truth is more unsettling. You have simply become untouchable, unbuyable, unmanipulable, because you see through the game. And here's the ironic part. The very people who once sought your attention, validation, and approval will begin to resent you for not needing theirs. Women, especially those still caught in the fantasy of the perfect man, may accuse you of being emotionally unavailable, too intellectual, or distant. But what they truly mean is they can no longer control you. You've left the stage, stopped reading from their script, and without that script, they don't know how to interact with you because you've ceased being a character and started being a man. Jung once quipped that the gods have become diseases, meaning what ancient cultures call divine possession, modern psychology calls neurosis. And men chasing validation are, spiritually, among the sickest. You might believe it's romantic to say, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would disagree, suggesting that what you call love is a refusal to carry your own soul. It's simpler to project it onto a woman, making her the bearer of your hopes, meaning, and purpose, because if she carries it, you don't have to. However, there's a harsh truth. When she realizes she was never meant to carry your soul, she will and must drop it. No woman, no matter how loving, can bear the weight of a man who refuses to carry himself. And when she drops it, you'll feel betrayed. But you shouldn't. Instead, you should be thankful because in that moment, as the illusion shatters, you finally face the truth. The work of becoming a man was never hers to do. It was always yours. And in that raw moment of clarity, you have two paths. You can succumb to bitterness, joining the chorus of men who resent and mock women, choosing to blame them rather than confronting your own inner void. Or, as Jung would insist, you can turn inward. You can begin the solitary, formidable, yet liberating work of individuation, becoming whole without relying on another to complete you. The truth is, the woman you seek externally is a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned. Until you face this part, every relationship will be a facade, every connection a transaction, every love a deception. But when you do confront it, when you integrate your own inner feminine, you become a man who no longer needs to chase women. You don't pursue them, manipulate them, or perform for them. You simply stand still, fully grounded in who you are. From this place, something extraordinary occurs. You no longer attract women seeking a character, you attract women who desire truth. You'll recognize it instantly because she won't demand a performance, try to alter your script, or fall for a fantasy of you. She'll stand before you, genuine and real, not as a deity seeking worship, but as a human being ready to walk her own path alongside yours. No masks, no projections, no games. When you encounter her, the authentic her, not the imagined one, the difference will be clear. She won't overwhelm you with grand declarations or treat you as her missing piece. She won't entice you with promises of completion because she isn't looking to be completed or saved. She has done her own work, faced her shadow, confronted her animus, and shed her own illusions. That's why she won't need you to perform or carry her soul. She'll stand there, whole in herself, looking you in the eye, not as a man she wishes to mold, but as a man she is finally prepared to meet. In that encounter, there is no desperation, no clinging, no pretense, only truth. This truth, Jung taught, is the rarest and most dangerous kind of love, one that demands nothing but offers everything. It's born not of need, but of freedom. Freedom to choose to walk away, to stand together without illusions, without masks, without fear. However, be warned, most will never experience this. Most will quit before reaching that point, settling for the performance, the fantasy, the fleeting thrill of being seen as someone they are not, because facing their true selves still feels unbearable. But if you possess the courage, the raw, gut-wrenching courage, to persist, to stand alone, to strip away every false layer built to gain approval, you will eventually find yourself at the precipice of something terrifyingly beautiful. You will find yourself. And when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They will no longer be the mirror you use to feel like a man. They will become something entirely different. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. And you will love them not out of necessity, but by choice, from a position of strength and completeness, from a place that unequivocally knows who you are. Carl Jung didn't offer a map to follow. He issued a stark warning. Any man who shirks self-confrontation will become enslaved by the projections of others, particularly those of women. But he also presented a challenge to embark on the path of individuation, to cease blaming women for the roles you willingly adopt, to stop seeking wholeness in another's gaze, to stop waiting to be chosen. For the man who chooses himself, fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance or reduced to a character in someone else's narrative. He becomes the author of his own life. If this message resonates deeply, don't just scroll past. Don't let it be merely another piece of content you consume and forget. Take a moment now to like this video, share it with another man who needs to hear this truth, and subscribe for more. Your support isn't just for us. It's for the next man still lost in illusion, waiting to be freed. Help us spread this message. Help us awaken the world, one man at a time.